There's a question that a lot of people would ask, what the heck are you talking about when you use the terminology hockey puck? That's what you're here to find out this morning if you don't know already. There is a reason for that, and it is size and how it looks. But here to share with us today is Don Lorimar and two friends of his, two doctors that have come to share their experiences in utilizing this new form of energy. So will you welcome first Don Lorimar of North Glen, Colorado, please.
Good morning. Thank you for coming. This is going to be a high-speed program, and I want you to understand that you don't have to take notes because I am putting together a brochure which will be available later today that outlines the highlights. There's no way that we can teach hockey puck in a session like this because all of the energies are new to this planet and they do things that are new to this planet. We are going to, Dr. McGinnity is here, and we're going to teach hockey puck tomorrow night here 6:30 to 9:30. So if you have an interest in what's going to keep your immune system in balance in the coming millennium, you better be there. The program will consist of, I'm going to say a few words to get things oriented. Dr. Bernard McGinnity is here from Carmichael, California. He's a graduate of McGill University, 41 years of experience and practice, whole bunch of stuff. He's clairvoyant, clairaudient, and he has more hockey puck clinical experience than all the rest of the physicians on this planet. So I'm going to say a few words, then I'm going to introduce him. Following that, we will have a 15-minute video from Dr. Hannah McCormick from Saranac, New York, a brilliant psychic veterinarian, and she has more hockey puck experience with the four-footers than all the rest of the veterinarians. And then we'll cap it off as to what the new energies are and what they do, what they mean to you and your immune system. How many of you were in here last night to hear Danny and Brinkley? Okay. I want you to get his book. I recommend his book because I died in 1979 for 22 minutes, and I went out and bought his book. And I only had to do it once, and he had to do it 3 times to get it right. Get his book. So going forward, you need to know that, let's put the first slide up, please, that the information that is being given to Dr. McCormick, Hannah McCormick, and I'll just call her Hannah from now on, and Dr. McGinnity comes from the Ascended Master Hilarion. Hilarion was Plato on this planet, and he was Apostle Paul. He's a part of the White Brotherhood, nothing racist there. And his bag on the other side is to assist us in technology and healing. We have the next slide, please. The hockey puck is named so, and incidentally, I discovered very recently, even though I had read Mr. Brinkley's stuff, he mentions a hockey puck that he developed a number of years ago. So he and I are going to talk about that. The hockey puck, that's upside down, Ruthie, please. The hockey puck is named so because it looks like one. It is a highly densified holographic form of Mother Earth's love energy plus other things. It is not manufactured, it is created, it is born by the concerted divine efforts of about 8 different people on 6 different parts of the United States. It is a long-range process, it is a living thing. And if you look closely at the areas surrounding this slide, you will see cloudiness. This picture was taken by a professional photographer who knew nothing about it. The areas that you see around that are the auric field of this living hockey puck. And it truly, this is very important for you. It is truly difficult for us because we feel that we have to see to believe. I want you to change your thinking and turn that around. If you believe, you will see. And David Adair addressed that this morning in symbiosis, symbiotic behavior. There are 3 of us now, Hannah and Bernie and myself, who now have learned how to become symbiotic with this creation. And it is, if we can go to the next frame, please. About the hockey puck, we're going to go to the next one. That will be back at my table for you. There are 6 facets to magnetism, and I have to speed this up, but don't get panicky because it's in print. The next one, please. For your magnetic healing interest, the levels of order in the construction of all life and matter are governed by unseen laws of form. These subtle energies, and that's what we're talking about this morning, subtle energies that determine form exist as repeating geometric patterns and shapes known as fractals. The next one, please. About a year and a half ago, and specifically on December 21st, a year and a half ago, Mother Mary appeared in this program. The information that I get from Hilarion comes intuitively through me. It's given to me, and I call that left-handed on purpose, and sometimes they say you're not paying attention. Right-handed on purpose is when I team up with John Fox in Nevada City, California, and we make an appointment, and both of us go into a trance state and access the information from Hilarion. In such a situation with John Fox in Nevada City, I was not present. A question was asked about the new energies of the hockey puck, and Mother Mary appeared. I have a transcription of that, and it'll be in that booklet. Next, please. 6 dimensions of magnetism. And I'm going to go through this very quickly. Each of these is extremely important. So we have geometry, symmetry, symbology, an auric field, which means color. We have a musical note, and we have the movement of ether. Those 6 things I liken in an analogy, please be with me, in an analogy as a sextet. Visualize in your mind a sextet that's in perfect harmony. And the music that it makes is, you might imagine the cello. Okay? And so these 6 dimensions, when brought into perfect resonance with one another, create energies that have not existed on this planet before. The analogy, the sextet, the 6 resonances. Next. So what we do in the hockey puck, pull that one off for a moment. I just want to go on with this. What I've been allowed to see with the development of the hockey puck is that by adding instruments to the orchestra, if you will, the analogy, instruments to the orchestra, each instrument that's added to the orchestra must be in perfect resonance with all of the 6 and all combinations of the 6, or you ain't got music. So we right now have added over 106 different resonances to the sextet, to those 6 dimensions. And so now if you were to imagine that in a musical sense, you've got a full-blown orchestra, each instrument resonating with each other instrument. And that might go like, doom, 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 doom. We all know that song. Okay, next. The major uses for the hockey puck that we're being given, and again I want to remind you that our information comes from the other side, and when we really need to get information, specifically we go over to the other side and look. So the major uses of the hockey puck are the alignment of the causal body. That's at the 7th plane. That's where everything happens. Then the next use of it is the curing of any disease. We now have a lot of experience with diseases and are looking forward to tackling others, though I'm fully confident that that's capable of being done. It's utilized to change your belief patterns at the 7th plane. And then the ability to receive or direct relationships or contacts with other human beings. Shortly put, we know how to radionically broadcast this energy and have done so. The hockey puck has another new energy, which we'll see later on. It's completely and totally different than any other energy on the planet. It has a range of 350,000 miles. The 5th thing is the ability to manifest new forms of energy within individuals themselves. And the 6th thing, the ability to use all of these principles remotely. Next, please. We're dealing with the 7 planes, and this simply is a description or a portrayal of the 7 energies. If you look up the top, the causal body, They become thinner as you go out, but the causal body is the seventh plane where everything happens. Next, please. Okay, let's stop there with the overheads. Now, it's my privilege and pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Bernard McGinnity, 41 years in practice, graduate of McGill University. His credits go to the back of the room, and he's here from Carmichael, California. Bernie has more clinical, medical, hockey puck experience than all of the rest of the doctors on this planet, and healers besides. Dr. McGinnity.
Thank you, and good morning. I think we could have the lights up, please, until I show the slides. It was a very sort of rousing introduction by Don. And I was in a channeling session with John Fox that Don mentioned. He's an engineer who is doing a lot of interesting work on inert gas technology. And he does channel Hilarion. I have had a lot of experience with channelers, and I've always felt that, I guess because of my medical background, that a lot of these people were in self-delusion, but that probably was my own arrogance. However, when I talk to Hilarion, I always sort of get awed by what I hear. I go in with 18 or 20 questions, and he opens the session, and in the initial 15 or 20 minutes, he will usually answer at least 16 of the questions I've already written down. When you get precise scientific information, you know that this is very genuine stuff that's coming through, which gets me back to Don telling you folks about all the experience I've had. I explained to Hilarion that I felt that I was like an Australian Aborigine who had suddenly discovered a UFO in the outback. And I enter this machine, this ship, and I see all these levers and buttons, and I'm wondering, you know, what I'm going to do with it. And this is really where I'm at with the hockey puck. I have truly seen some quite miraculous things with it, which I will, in a moment or two, get around to talking to you about. But I do want to convey to you people that we're really in the infancy in terms of what we can do with this rather remarkable device. Before I start talking about the hockey puck and magnetism, I'd like, if I may, to talk a bit about energy medicine. And perhaps in doing so, you will realize where I am coming from and what has happened in terms of my own development. All of you in this room, I'm sure, being very high-powered individuals, and that's not flattery. It's very obvious when you talk to you folks. Have all been, like me, probably led by the nose in your spiritual development. And that certainly, as I look back on my life, very much happened to me. When I graduated from medical school, I thought being a good physician depended on two things. Number one, hard science, and number two, compassion. Then the universe stepped in, and the first thing that happened to me in terms of changing my whole viewpoint was when I was doing my internship, and I was working with a Dr. Abraham Steinberg, who was a gynecologist. He was a brilliant surgeon, and he was also a brilliant intellect, unlike many gynecologists. He could stand on his own in a pathological conference with an internist or with a neurosurgeon, and he had a depth of knowledge of all fields of medicine. one day he was admitted to the hospital because he had pulled his back out. And he was really in horrific pain. And the way we used to treat that condition in a somewhat medieval fashion was to put people in traction and give them high-powered painkillers. And this was happening to Dr. Steinberg. He was even getting morphine and was getting very little relief. Then Dr. Walter Pontash, who was a Viennese-trained physician, came in with these gold and silver needles and offered to treat Dr. Steinberg to hopefully get rid of his bad pain, his condition. And Dr. Steinberg, in his own inimitable way, said, "Oh, what the hell, everything else is not working." And I was amazed when I saw these gold and silver needles being placed in his hand here, because obviously they couldn't turn him over, he was in so much pain, being placed here and in the ear. And within a couple of hours, he was out of pain. An hour later, he discharged himself from the hospital, and he was seeing patients the next day. Well, of course, the universe was obviously had a hand in this, because I said to myself, because I was fairly skilled in hypnosis, there's no way that this is a placebo effect. He was entering this purely on the basis of, let's see if it works, and it did work. Well, that was in 1961, and then in 1973, I had the opportunity of taking one of the first courses offered in acupuncture, and I was really fascinated. And again, the universe arranged that the first 3 or 4 patients had these absolutely dramatic results, which got me even more intrigued. However, whilst I was intrigued with Chinese metaphysics, basically in acupuncture they were saying that disease is caused by an abnormal flow of energy. And the whole basis of diagnosis is being able to recognize that abnormal flow. And the core of treatment was to correct the abnormal flow. Well, how did you do this? You did this by means of pulse diagnosis. There are 12 pulses, 6 at each wrist, 3 deep, 3 superficial. The only problem was that it really required many years of training to become adept in pulse diagnosis. And the Chinese have never been able to scientifically reproduce taking, say, 10 master acupuncturists and giving them, say, 6 patients for them all to come up with the same result. It may well be that all of the acupuncturists could cure them, but the pulse diagnosis was not identical. I felt much more comfortable when I started dealing with Japanese acupuncture, where we were able to measure energy flow with a scientific instrument, put it down in tablet form, and mathematically calculate what meridians needed to be stimulated and what needed to be sedated, and there were certain points on the acupuncture system that bled off energy and others that added it. Then I got involved with ear acupuncture, and I really want to talk about this because it really is scientifically based, and it leads us very nicely into what magnetism does. So if the slide director can get organized, and we'll turn the lights down a bit. Well, that's a little on the side. So why don't we go on to the next slide? It was kind of a joke anyway. All right. Well, this gentleman lying on his back is well, actually, don't worry about collecting them, because you'll be able to decipher it, even if you have to kink your neck a bit. Let's go back to Noget for a moment. Okay, this gentleman is a French neurologist, and his story of finding this whole science is absolutely fascinating. He was examining a patient one day, and as part of his physical examination, he noticed there was a scar on the ear. And he asked him, well, how did you get this scar on here? He said, oh, I was suffering from acute sciatica, and I went to this gypsy in Brittany who used this hot poker on my ear and burnt a hole in this spot, and my sciatica stopped immediately. Noger sort of was difficult for him to stop laughing. But in one of those wonderful examples of synchronicity, in the next 3 months, he had 3 other people come in, same story, same scar on the ear, same result. So Noger said, you know, it never had made sense to him, and it certainly didn't make sense to any, I think, medical student, when you look at the ear. Here's this organ, which is, according to our medical training, is simply a device to pick up sound, and yet it's really an incredible structure. It is the only structure in the body that is comprised of ectoderm, endoderm, and mesoderm, the 3 tissues. It is richly vascularized, and it has 3 different powerful neural supplies. So Noger said, maybe there is a representation on the ear for many parts of the body, and he started working on this, and was many times sort of at the point of giving up, when one morning he was shaving, and the picture of a uterus in a baby in utero came into his mind. So can we go to the next slide? The next one. This is a representation of the cerebral cortex. And as you can see on the cerebral cortex, the face has this large representation, the thumb does, but the buttocks, which are physically much more massive, has a very small representation. The point being that cerebral cortex representation is based on sensory input. So let's go to the next slide. He also found the same thing is true on the ear. And the ear representation is actually of a baby upside down, which is shown somewhat here. Anyway, it was this vision that came to him that enabled him to work out this. If you run your finger down your nail down the ear here at this point, you'll find there are a series of small notches that correspond to the vertebra. And if one is astute clinically, you can frequently find out where the pathology lies by seeing if there's a lesion on the ear. The heart, which is represented in this area, will also frequently exhibit either a scar or pigmentation where there's something pathologically wrong. Well, from this, and we can go through the next few slides rapidly, he developed a whole series of mapping out the entire body, the individual muscles, the individual arteries, the individual organs. Next slide, please. And it has truly become a science. Now, what is intriguing is that he also discovered what he calls the auricular pulse. That is, if you pass either gold or silver over the ear, over a pathological point. For example, the person has a cancer of the hip. When you pass that little bar of metal over the hip, there's a sudden increase in the pulse. The pulse is regular, but when you pass that, suddenly it jumps up like this. They did an extremely interesting study at UCLA where they took, I believe, 47 people. They put them in this large room in the emergency suite, and they covered them up completely with paper, except their ear was exposed. And they had a couple of trained auricular therapists who were diagnostically correct 90% of the time on all these patients just by examining their ear and feeling the pulse. I mean, when I say diagnostically correct, they would say, you know, there's something wrong with the heart, there's something wrong with the hip, etc. Next slide, please. Yeah, now, this is where it really gets interesting. Noget discovered that there is a harmonic frequency on the ear that starts at 2.5 hertz, goes to 5, 10, 20, 40, 80, 160. And these represent the normal frequencies for certain tissues. When there is something wrong with a part of the body, the frequency on the ear becomes pathological. It changes. Let me give you an example. This is the point for the neck. You've all had the saying, you know, he is a real pain in the neck, or this situation is a real pain in the neck. The normal hertz range in this is 10 hertz. However, if the pain in the neck is psychosomatically caused, the brain area is 160 hertz. Frequently, you'll find that is the hertz range in the neck. The interesting thing is that if you can change that hertz range back to 10 from 160, the neck pathology will disappear without you even touching the neck. And I have seen that happen many times. Now, it's my belief that when we're dealing with magnetism, we are really changing abnormal frequencies. However, when we look at the basic qualities of the north and south pole of the magnets, if we have a true understanding, we can turn the lights on again, please. Slides are over now. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, one thing. Let's go on to the next two slides, because for the metaphysicians here, this is really interesting. All right. This is a painting by Harmonius Bosch, I believe his name was. And if we have the next slide, this shows you the ear a little better. Okay. You see the devil here. And the devil is sticking a point here. And there's an arrow through these points here. And the devil's tail is here. Well, the intriguing thing is that this is one of the most important acupuncture points in the body, called the divine gate. And these points with the devil's lance and his tail are stimulating 2 points. One that stimulates you sexually, and the other that inhibits you sexually. So I just thought I'd throw that in. Okay, lights on, please. Oh, you'll have to pay my fee to know that one. Now, magnets. We can explain magnets in terms of changing frequency. And if you folks, I'm sure many of you already do, use magnets, you can practice magnets quite successfully at a very simple level by finding tender points and putting in the north pole of a magnet on that tender point. However, if you really wish to practice magnetic therapy with some sophistication and success in more complicated cases, then you need to take things to a little higher plane. First of all, the north pole of the magnet has a negative electron activity, which is the ideal in cellular metabolism. It is anti-inflammatory. It reduces pain, swelling, and erythema. In the inflammatory process, you get swelling of cellular membranes. And you get a delay in the passage of ions over the cellular membranes. This is especially true of the potassium-sodium pump. So when you have inflammation, you get abnormality in metabolism. Even such things as insulin are not able to enter the cell to do its important job. You get an increase in concentration of lactic acid and uric acid, and the body becomes more acidic. Now, I really can't overemphasize that point, the acidity of the body, because it's the alkaline state that the body is healthy. And one of the purposes of the Hocky Puck is to restore a normal alkaline acid balance. One of my early mentors was an IBM scientist called Marcel Vogel. And he was a remarkable man. He was a scientist. He had over 100 patents. He discovered the coatings for computer disks. And he was an expert at electron microscopy. And he made a remark to me one day that stuck in the back of my mind. He said, "You know, Bernard, I was looking at some blood of a very sick, dying person under the electron microscope, and I saw a red cell change into a spirochete." And, you know, I said, gee, that's strange, because modern medicine is taught from a monomorphic standpoint. You know, a virus is a virus, a bacteria is a bacteria, an amoeba is an amoeba, and a human being is a human being. You know, there's no interchange between sort of species. But interestingly enough, a lot of work is being done now, and a lot of scientists are going very much into the theory that pleomorphism is where it's at, and that when the body becomes toxic, the organisms become more and more primitive, and we become more and more toxic, and we become more and more acid. Now, in my own practice, if you can regard my healing approach as sort of a pyramid, the Hocky Puck is the apex of that pyramid. However, I would not be honest with you if I said that, you know, if I have a difficult case, I automatically go to the Hocky Puck. Because as one finds in medicine, there's nothing that works for everybody every time. And what really depends on the patient. Is the patient ready to be healed? If they're ready to be healed, there may be several approaches that can be worked. But I don't like killing grasshoppers with elephant guns, and so I have other tools to use. And I brought my case along today to show you just a few of those. There is, but let's stay with the Hocky Puck first. Now, when we're placing magnets or we're placing the Hocky Puck, essentially there are three things that one should be concerned about. One is, well, first of all, what are we going to be dealing with? Obviously, most of you are thinking in terms of using magnets for pain. And this is certainly true. The vast amount of work that I do with the Hocky Puck or other magnets is dealing with pain. However, it can be used for a whole wide variety of disease states. Immune-compromised states that you see with chronic fatigue syndrome is a good example, that you see with fibromyalgia, or you see with systemic candidiasis. Now, you do not obviously use a hockey puck as the healing tool. If you're dealing with candidiasis, which can be a devastating illness for many women especially, you have to deal with diet. And I certainly use antifungals, but I stimulate the immune system with a hockey puck. And this is one of the cases in where the South Pole is used. I also use it to enhance IV nutrient therapy. There's a cocktail that I call the Myers cocktail. It is composed of a wide variety of minerals, vitamins, a massive amount of vitamin C, and some adrenal cortex extract, although that just recently has been taken off the market. Thank you, FDA. What I do is I use this in treating patients who are severely immune compromised. My cancer patients all get treated with this. And it is really quite remarkable to see the change that comes about. What I do is I take this big 50 cc syringe, I have a butterfly needle, and I rest the syringe on the hockey puck as I slowly give the infusion. I started off and used my eldest son as my guinea pig. He's a marathon runner. And within 5 seconds of starting the IV, he said, "Dad, hand me a brick. I want to break the window." And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I'm so hot, I can't stand it." And interestingly enough, I find that when people are very severely compromised, they don't get any feeling of heat until maybe the last few cc's. And as they get better, that feeling of heat comes further and further and closer to when I start. I have 2 patients right now, one with advanced prostate cancer and the other with a mediastinal small oats cancer, both which are pretty bad. And in the group that have been treated at UC Davis, these 2 are the only ones that are not experiencing nausea, and they're not vomiting. And I got a sort of nice compliment from one of the professors down there who came up to these 2 and said, "I know you guys go to the same doctor." And I said, "I don't know what he's doing, but please keep on doing it." Magnets can be very, very useful for stress. There is a point, an acupuncture point, down here called Ni Quan, or the inner court, that is used to treat seasickness, nausea. It is a marvelous point for stress. And if any of you go through stressful periods, you get one of those little magnets, especially with a wristband. If you put it on that point, you'll be surprised what it might do to you. It's very simple. You take your own fingers like this, put them there, and that point in between these 2 tendons is this very important acupuncture point. It affects the autonomic nervous system, and it brings a feeling of calm. The hockey puck helps wound healing. It also deals very successfully with post-operative complications like gas, edema. It can be used to treat asthma. And the most important thing, of course, is the pain states. Now, when we're dealing with pain states, I look at 3 areas: where the pain is originating from, where the pain is referred to, and appropriate acupuncture points, so that we get all 3 areas tackled. And when one does that more sophisticated approach, then one's success rate in difficult cases increases. That does not mean that the simple approach of putting your hand on the patient's hip, ankle, whatever, and finding the tender point and putting a north pole of a magnet isn't worthwhile doing. you know, simple things are simple and often they work. And for those of you who are interested in using this on yourselves or on your friends, I would advise you, it's very simple and it's so often effective. Don, did you want to start Hannah's video at this point?
I think what we'll do, in the interest of time, I think what we'll do in the interest of time is we do have a video monitor. We'll put it on the table back here and play Hannah's video, and you can over and over, you can come by and look at it. We'll continue with the end of our presentation here. And I guess we're scheduled to do a luncheon down here, so we want to be on time for that. And then tomorrow night, but I want to leave time for questions. So,
Well, I can start now, or there are a few interesting things I was going to show.
well, why don't you do what little things you have to show, and then we're going to fudge on the time just a little bit, maybe 10 minutes, as long as he's all the way here from Sacramento, or wherever it is that what planet he's from, we're not sure yet. So the thing that I want to emphasize while he's getting that ready is that when we speak of magnetic energy, magnets, yes, magnets are made from Mother Earth. Yes, they are a reflection of the energy of Mother Earth, which we evolved in. I didn't say born because that's a gimme. We evolved over any, 100,000 years, whatever you want to pick. I can assure you that without that energy, we would not be here today. And the fundamentals of life involve magnetism and the sun. And in the coming millennium, when the energy plants are shut down and the emergency rooms are shut down, the one thing that's going to keep you in balance is some form of magnetic energy at the atomic level. And the final part, let me know when you're ready, Doc. The final part that I'll be presenting is to show you what can be done with this divine gifted part, a gift from God. You ready?
Yeah, I just, first of all, I want to show you this. My wife is always complaining about the money I spent on machines. This one is quite remarkable. If any of you folks do a lot of traveling, I really highly recommend this. This has a magnet which sits on the back on governing vessel 13, which is an immune stimulant. This little device is an ion generator, and you get spewing of negative ions. And I came on my trip yesterday, and I was up. I had about an hour's sleep the previous night because of some real problems in terms of my patients. And it was amazing. I turned this little machine on, and it really, really does work. Now, the machine down there that I want to talk to you about is called the infrasonic sound. And it was originally... Sure, sure. And it was discovered by, or invented by, Chinese physicists at Beijing. They did some very interesting studies on the Qigong healers. They found that everyone, you, I, everybody in the room, emits sound, especially from our palm chakras. And when they tested in a very sophisticated way the Qigong healers, they found that the sound emitted from their palms was about 100 times more intense than from the average individual. They found that it had a frequency range of between 8.5 and 13.5 hertz. And this is what they have reproduced in this machine under a random frequency. That is, the frequency bounces between those two narrow levels. And it is just like you have a Qigong healer at your side. I've been experimenting with this. For instance, last night I was a little agitated, and so what I did was I put this on my ear for the magical 3 minutes. Now, I was stimulating all the points on my ear, but I certainly was able to fall asleep very quickly. I've also incidentally had the same effect by putting the Hocky Puck, this is my little Hocky Puck, under my bed with the North Pole up. So if I'm tense, the Hocky Puck seems to straighten me out. One little thing that I must show you, and this is a healing crystal that my friend Marcel Vogel made. It's a 13-sided double-terminated crystal. And what I found is that crystals focus chi energy. And if one has a chakra that is out of balance, I don't use a Hocky Puck. I don't use this machine. I use a crystal. And it is interesting to see the changes in people. Quite a few of my patients are psychics, and it's always great to work with those folks. And I can imagine it would be great to work with any one of you, because you're all highly sensitive and you give feedback. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that you're dealing with energy, and whatever approach you use, whether it's a simple one of using a crystal or whether it's a sophisticated one of using a Hocky Puck, you can produce profound changes in the individual, provided the individual wants to be changed. Thank you.
Thanks, Doc. We're very privileged to have him here from Carmichael. While they're setting up the remainder of the transparencies, and since we're not going to see the video of Dr. Hannah McCormick except back here at our table, I want to give you a little story. I've been in her clinic 3 different times for a total of about 10 or 12 days. Hannah is psychic. She speaks to the animals. She's a graduate of Cornell University, and she's about 46 years old. She has an animal practice in rural upstate New York at Saranac, and she works with large and small animals. And when I was in there, we were learning how to use the Hocky Puck on the 4-footed guys, and an old cat was brought in. For those of you who have seen the stage play Cats, you might portray this as a real old scruffy cat. And he had under his right forepaw here a tumor about the size of a small walnut. And so the object was for Hannah to remove that. And so Hannah talked with him, and she talks to animals and they answer her. And so she talked with him and she said, you want me to remove this, or would you really be on your way and have us put you down? He said, oh no. He said, I've got stuff to do yet. So then the next consideration was he was old and scruffy and frail. And she was afraid of the dosage of anesthesia to give him because it might kill him. So her out was, she looked across the table at me and she said, how much anesthesia? And so I get my pendulum out and I said, well, let's try this amount. And it worked, and she took the tumor out and stitched him up. Now, one of the things that we use the Hocky Puck for in that type of thing and in her practice is that by applying the Hocky Puck directly to the incision, you can stop the bleeding in 10 to 12 seconds. We timed it time and time and time again. And then by having her associate hold the Hocky Puck in the immediate area, we get someplace between 60 and 80% healing in less than 15 minutes. In less than 15 minutes. Interestingly enough, we went out to work on a horse, and he was going about 70 miles an hour when he hit a barbed wire fence broadside. Now, his front forequarter was badly damaged from the barbed wire, and the rear quarter was not nearly as badly damaged. We found that the rate and the amount of healing on the front forequarter far exceeded that on the rear quarter. And we had, this was the first, Hannah and I are out there barnstorming, right? So I said, why is that? And intuitively, she was given the answer that that one needed to heal faster than the other one. Are you beginning to get the picture? Now let's go back to the cat. Let's go back to the cat. This old cat, and what she found in treating these four-footed guys is that with the rate of healing, she could put them in a cage, which is normal, and they'd be tearing the door off the cage that afternoon to go home instead of staying overnight. So these are the things, and we will play, we've got a video, we'll play Hannah's thing that way. But the punchline's coming on the cat. He comes back 3 or 4 days later to get the stitches out. And so Hannah's taking the stitches out, and she communicates with this cat, and she said, did we give you the right amount of anesthesia? And so help me God, his answer was, yes, Don was right. We don't give enough credit to these animals and their abilities to perceive what's going on. One of the projects that we have going on now, and this was mentioned by someone in here, I forget now just who, is that animals take on our energies. And animals respond to the balance of their immune system. They're almost the same as we are, except that their skeletal bases is different, and they have one organ that's different. But basically, animals have all 4 feet in contact with Mother Earth. Keep in mind that pure magnets are made from Mother Earth, and that is the energy that we need. Dew dancing is one of the methods of healing that we use for cancer patients, and that means you go out in the grass that has not been sprayed with malathion or anything else in the morning, and you walk in the grass in your bare feet. You got a lot of meridians in the bottoms of your feet. And so by walking in that, the feet absorb the moisture from the grass that has been magnetized by Mother Earth all night. And that brings those meridians in balance. We're going to go on now very quickly with the next overhead here. Work that was done in Sweden by Dr. Eric Enby and Professor Gösta Wåhlin. I've shown this before, I'm not sure here. Dr. Enby is on the right, on your right. Professor Wåhlin is on the left. And I went to Clyde, North Carolina, and studied with Dr. Wåhlin a number of years ago. He and Wåhlin and Enby treated over 1,000 cancer patients, cancer of all kinds, by using a powerful magnet on the thymus, which Dr. McGinnity just referred to. We have 2 immune systems. We've got the control tower up here. That is the thymus, the pineal, the pituitary, and the hypothalamus. That's a control tower that controls the balance and secretion of all kinds of hormones and everything else you need to keep the body in balance. The other immune system's down here. This is the power plant, and that's the adrenals, the kidneys, the liver, and the sex organs. That's the power plant. And so what they did was to stimulate the thymus in order that the thymus would produce, and if you're interested in AIDS, more T cells, T for thymus. And therefore, this stimulated the immune system. They were 80% successful in over 1,000 cases of cancer, non-invasive, drug-free, no known side effects. And Dr. Wåhlin transcended here a couple of years ago. His history is legendary worldwide, and he has willed to me his life's unpublished papers, and that's something I got to do. So this is another application of these other energies. And the next one, please. What we found in the creation, in the birth, if you will, of the hockey puck is that everything counts. Everything has energies. There are more than just magnets in there. Along the way, Hilarion kept telling me, put this rascal in wood. Well, I'm visualizing Dr. McGinnity. He loves to to autoclave everything, right? Well, if you got wood, that ain't going to last, right? So we get down to the basics here, and I said, what if an AIDS patient spills his blood on the hockey puck and it's made out of wood? And I'm told from the other side, oh, that's simple. You just take an alcohol swab, wipe it off, put it out in the sun, and it'll be cleansed in 10 minutes. AIDS virus cannot exist in the north magnetic pole of the hockey puck. And I've got experience with that in Toronto, Canada, where I had a 26-year-old AIDS patient, had 2 days to live, bowels blocked, bladders blocked, lungs filling with fluid. I worked with a physiotherapist there, Ellen Lipsius, beautiful person. She had him on the street in 3 days. There's a corollary story. He was so elated, so anything you want to call it. 2 months later, he went out to a party and overdosed on drugs, and he's gone. But anyhow, I started pursuing the woods. And the universe handed me, when I asked about walnut and ash and hickory and all of these cherry and all these beautiful woods that I love, no, none of them were pure enough from this country to put into this. They were not spiritual enough. To cut through the bottom line, I was handed a report by lovely Joy Ed, who's back here, about wood kinesiology, Dr. Robert Frost. Of course, he's in Hanover, Germany. Next thing I know, he's in San Diego visiting his parents. I go see him. So along the way, we look at the function that woods play in our lives. These are trees that have been standing out there in the weather and the wind, the water, and everything else. So the woods that balance, if we look at the first category, the woods that balance specific meridians in almost everyone. Function gallbladder, Bubinga from Africa. Function heart, balancing the heart meridian, larch. That's a common wood. We use that. Function, the small, balancing and healing woods, all chakras, black walnut, the pelvic postures, purple heart from Brazil, and woods that most often balance all meridians in one person, Bubinga from Africa, purple heart from Brazil, and black walnut. I spent a year trying to find black walnut, and I spoke at Daytona Beach for Global Sciences. And after the talk, 2 men came up to me and said, I've got some black walnut. See how the universe works? One of them was a quarter of a black walnut log, 300 years old, that had been in a family for 4 generations, and they've been looking for something spiritual to do with it. Then another gentleman came up to me, and he and his wife are here at this time. He had been, and he's sitting right back there, I can see you, Gene and Dolly. As a little tyke, he said he had been in his dad's lumber mill back in Illinois, and he has provided me with some black walnut. Now, according to what Dr. McGinnity and I were getting, was if we connect all 3 woods together so that they interact together in a relationship together, we introduce resonances that are far higher than any one of them individually, any 2 of them together. And so geometrically, I had to figure out how we were going to bring those 3 woods together in this little rascal. And we were able to solve that problem recently. If you come by the table back there, I'll show you what it looks like. They are semi-finished. You can see some of the prior models that are completely finished with Bubinga and Purple Heart. So there is added another spirituality. These resonances keep compounding. But now we are at the top of the curve with the hockey puck, and it's up to Hannah and Bernie and myself to figure out more ways of how to use it, and I'll show you some of those in a minute. Next one, please. We are 5 generations into poisoning ourselves. 5 generations with everything. One of the poisonous things is plastics. We have electromagnetic pollution. And everybody here has talked about it. Monsanto's taken over the seed business and every other doggone thing. These progressions, as handed down from parent to child, are not a linear equation. They are geometric. And this is why the earth is in trouble at this time. because these are geometric, we don't know how to handle them. So why do children kill children? Now the new reports are out that polar bear cubs are mutating clear up above the Arctic Circle. What's happening to our food chain? And all of the rest of the stuff is going on. We got polluted at Gulf War, and the government won't admit it. The government's a participant in this. And so what's going on is that we have the next one, please. We have been given a God gift to take care of ourselves if we want to. And it's called the immune system. 75% of the earth is water, and about the same for our bodies. We have learned how to take the hockey puck and its orchestra, you remember, boom, 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 over 106 different resonances, and imprint those into pure water. You're looking here at a water jug. You'll see the same thing on the table back there, which is sitting on top of a hockey puck and on top of a large disc in the sun. The key here is ozonated, distilled hockey puck in the sun in glass, not plastic. That goes to every cell in your body in 12 seconds. Hannah Kruger taught me that. And if you do that and drink 4 ounces an hour to keep your immune system in balance, you can't transplant a disease into your body. And I can take any one of you that doesn't drink, smoke, or do drugs and jack up your immune system in 30 days so that you will repel anthrax. That's what I said, anthrax. How do I know? I went over to the other side and looked it up. Next. You can leave that on. I said the new energies. We were allowed for the first time to see the East and the West Pole energy. I mentioned that. I got this out of Walter Russell stuff. I'm not sure that's what it looks like. But what I do know is that North Pole energy in magnetism is counterclockwise, South Pole is clockwise, East and West is both. And I haven't got that figured out yet. But we do know how to radionically broadcast that as much as 350,000 miles, and I worked with Reverend Hannah Kruger, and we were able to take care of a brain tumor in a woman 1,200 miles away. Next. One of the new energies that we see, and watch this, I'm going to describe for you an entirely new medical technology. We're looking at the bottom here is the hockey puck. We take ozone, O3. You can't breathe it. But we take ozone, O3, and pay attention to this. Geometrically, properly, we pass it through the north magnetic field of the hockey puck, and it converts O3 to O10 in 3.5 seconds. You can breathe O10. There's a cure for emphysema and lung cancer. We can also put you in a body bag so that your pores absorb it all over. And we've had some incredible healings of cancer with that. Next, please. Where are we? Move it over. Where is magnetism? Dinshaw Gadali produced a chart, which you see here on the vibrations at various octaves. If you look down at the bottom of the chart, the 64th or 65th octave, that's magnetism. And keep in mind it's got an auric field, a musical note, and all the rest of that stuff. Well, if you look at this, I ask you the question then, does this mean then at 18 septillion cycles per second, with all of the rest, we have auric fields, color, we've got aromatherapy, everything else. Does that mean that these other modalities are subharmonics of healing? Subharmonics of healing. In other words, does a hockey puck do it all? I don't know the answer to that. One more. Next. And we can pass that one. So what's the bottom line? I've said that is there one more there? Well, what's next? Those 4 things will pass that, and